We have a couple of new folks joining us today. So I'm going to start by introducing myself again. I am District Governor-elect Sheila Brennan. I will be the District Governor after Pat Borowski starting July 1st. And it is my true honor to be your District Governor-elect. I am truly honored with the faith and just the friendships that have put me in this position to be able to lead all of you. And just as we've had the first 2 weeks, I just know this is going to be an incredible year for every single one of us. I am with the Rotary Club of Vienna, Virginia. Well, I'm not with them. They're at the holiday party right now, but I chose to be here. So I didn't choose it. This is where I need to be and want to be. So it is wonderful to see all of you. I would like to let you know that we have a couple of new PEs that have just recently been assigned. And I know that we have one on the call with us tonight. Colleen, could you please introduce yourself to us? There she is.
I know, I'm in my car. I'm Colleen Radich. I am the president of the Sterling Rotary Club.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, I'm on vacation in Utah. So.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for joining us. And she just got appointed and I immediately wrote to her. She's already got all of the back emails, and her husband is the current president of the E-Club, the Rotary 7610 E-Club. So I met him 3 weeks ago. This is wonderful. So welcome, Colleen, and you and I will spend a little bit more time together and I'll get you caught up on a lot. It's so nice to have you with us tonight. Drive carefully.
Thank you.
We also have, I don't know if she is on the call or not, Karen Lawson with the Gloucester Point Club was appointed this morning. And I emailed her. She wasn't sure if she could make it tonight or not, but we were all doing cartwheels and yay and high fives to have that position filled. And we have a new public president-elect for the Vienna Club, Kurt Says, who is not here tonight. He's at that party. We swapped our PE and our PN. So he's already been brought up to date on where we are and is going to work with me along with Karen and Colleen to get caught up to where all of you are at this point. So I will give you a 1-minute briefing on how this is going to go tonight. We are going to have our district governor speak for about 20 to 25 minutes, and then we are going to take a 15-minute break, and we will have our social activity during that 15-minute break. And then I will talk about some real exciting news that we got today and training. I want to go through all of those dates that I threw at you on the 4th of November and just make sure that we constantly review the activities that are coming up that go all the way through to spring of 2023. And then after our 15-minute social, then our district governor will finish with the second half of her presentation. And we will get you out of here at 7:45 this evening so that you can go spend the rest of the evening with your family and what you have to do. So I am going to turn it over to our current district governor, who is a member of the Bailey's Crossroads Club. I have known Pat since about, I would say, I think 2013, when I first started working with Viva Vienna, our club fundraiser. And Pat and I had a phone relationship until 2 years ago, when we then, because they would bring their Mustang to our fundraiser to sell tickets, but every time I was there, Pat was already gone. So we never met in person until I went in for my interview for this position. That's when we met in person. So she is so down to earth and one of the smartest people I think I've ever run into in my entire life. And believe me, I'm old. So Pat, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you to the Explorers President-elects for Rotary year 2022-2023.
Well, thank you very much. And oh my God, I hope I can live up to that intro. Buckle your seats. We're really going to start flying through this. And I would like you, if you have questions as we're discussing any of the material here, to please, go ahead and ask them as we're going through it. I want to say a couple of things. First of all, on the slides, don't panic when you see them. I have violated every principle known to man on the content of slides. Now, the reason I did that was we're going to hit the highlights. I want to have a conversation, but on the other hand, I want you to have detail that you can take away. And so that is the reason that there is a lot of text on the slides, which normally I would not do. Okay, so the second thing, I want us to begin to see this, this presentation through the crucible of the phrase, we are in the business of service. Because we really, running your club meetings and running your club really is running a business. And if we don't, when we fail to take a methodical, organized approach to things, and that those kinds of procedures and policies continue to be consistent from year to year, the club really then creates for itself chaos, confusion, and quite frankly, disinterest, because one major thing that adults can't tolerate, especially in their volunteer world, is disorganization. So we're going to go through a number of things and we're going to take care of that. So with that, if we would go to the first slide. The next slide, yeah. Now, that's kind of small, but this is a listing of the different types of meetings that you're going to have. And you may say, oh, well, I know this already. But the reality is that you are going to have a slightly different approach and organizational structure to the different nature of meetings. The second thing is that you need to understand what are the requirements in your club for these different types of meetings. There are different notice requirements, timing requirements, and you really need to become familiar with that. For instance, board meetings, you have pretty much three types of meetings. And board meetings really should be on a monthly basis. They should be at the same time in the same place. Having them as a round robin, wherever you can find someone who will accommodate the board for that month, is very chaotic. So if you can avoid that, that's terrific. You may also have a board meeting that is going to be discussions of areas of focus. If you have a particular upcoming fellowship meeting, but more particularly your service meetings, and you really need to go through what the demands of this are, what the financing of it is going to be, what the projections are, what kind of staffing you're going to require. You may want to do that within the context of a board meeting devoted to that, where everyone in the board can ask their questions, and additionally, the board can make a decision then and there, rather than putting off. The other issue is that there may be circumstances which will require special board meetings. Something particularly arises and you need to come together as a board to make a decision. These can be done in person, or they can be done by video conferencing, Zoom conferencing. And of course, we do encourage where you can do it by Zoom. And if the board members are comfortable with that, it certainly saves everybody a lot of time and a lot of energy. Club meetings, similarly, you're going to have your standard club meeting in which you're going to have a speaker and people are going to come in and there's going to be a little bit of fellowship. But additionally, you may have different types of club meetings. You may have club meetings that are going to be a briefing for example, people that you are soliciting to be interested in membership. And having a board meeting devoted to what is Rotary about, what is the value proposition that you as a club bring to the community, the expectations the club has of its members, and additionally, the benefits that the club can provide members. Having that in a group setting discussion allows prospects to really see your club as authentic in what it is saying. You may also have a done at that club meeting project, a service project. It may be packing things, wrapping things, but you can incorporate that. The other class is going to be your club forums. Club forums are progress reports. They are going to be special events. We just talked about having a board meeting that might be focused exclusively on a major service project upcoming. Therefore, you might want to partner that with a club meeting forum to specifically talk about that project and either get the input or begin to solicit filling jobs and positions for that. One of the things I would advise you on club forums is please understand you do not need to report on everything at a club forum. Some clubs have a club forum every other month. There are clubs that have club forums once a month. And what they do is they select an upcoming circumstance. So sometimes it'll be youth. Sometimes it'll be something specific in community service, vocational. But at each forum, you should be giving your club an update on your financial status and be transparent with that. Make club members educated to what the finances are in your club and how those finances operate for the support of the club, for your contributions to the foundation, and thirdly, obviously, your investment in your community or global grant projects. As you will have service project meetings and events. And then additionally, you will have meetings as a PE, really for the purpose of sharing and garnering new ideas, your planning sessions for the coming year, and then of course, the organization of that. Next slide, please. So here's kind of a planning guide for you. What are you going to be doing as president-elect? Well, the first thing, of course, is you're going to continue to be involved in your club activities. Supporting the success of your club this year gives you a more successful basis upon which to build in your coming year. And I really want clubs to not think of, it's my presidency, now I'm gone, that's it. Or I'm not yet the president, they're taking care of it, I don't have to pay attention. One of the things that we are doing at the district level is myself, Sheila, and Renee are doing things as a coordinated planning team so that our district is going to be moving forward and building on in subsequent years on the successes and the agreed to programs and directions of the previous year. And that way you can really be more successful in solving challenges. If you continue to just look at administration, next administration, next administration, and each one is sort of its own independent deal, you're really not going to be successful in addressing the challenges that all clubs are facing. because they're too large to be resolved in 1 year. But if you do a rolling, applied, coordinated, purposeful 3-year planning, and you continue that, now you can make progress and build. And I think it's easier for everybody then to see how they can be a part of that. As I said, you're going to support your current administration and club activities, and really start looking at how-tos, how things are put together, the workings of your club, to understand all parts of it. That isn't because as president, you're not going to be doing all those parts, but certainly as president-elect, you're going to be having to identify the talent in your club that would hopefully best pair with the responsibilities of the different positions. And that will also allow you to be a better overseer, i.e. project manager, when it comes to your year as president. And clearly you want to begin meetings to discuss your vision for the next year, invite ideas and suggestions, as we said before, both in terms of what is the next step or the next progression to either a service project we're doing or building on membership, etc., as well as in the areas of projects and donations. Do we need to increase some of these? Are some of these projects that maybe are no longer that popular or supported or interested in by the membership? And you have to make some hard decisions. It will also allow you to identify maybe more successful pairings among your members for team committees. And committees are essential. I know a lot of people want to do things by themselves, but unfortunately, that means Pat knows everything about this particular activity in the club and nobody else does. And maybe people might be interested in it and want to feel a part of the club, but because Pat doesn't want to deal with other people on a committee structure, you're really not addressing or responding to the nature of Rotarians, which is, as Rotarians, together we see challenges, together we find solutions, and together we execute those solutions in order to do good in our community, create sustainable results that improve our community over time. As the president, now you're going to move into more of an oversight project manager and make sure that you run really engaging and fun meetings. In order to do that, you really have to be organized. And this is true for everything. What does well organized mean? Go back to my outline again. You need to know the objectives of the meeting, what you need out of that meeting in terms of actions. If you need other people to make a decision, they need to be there, or they need to have advised you in advance of what is going on. Please keep the schedules the best you can. Delaying things, having people not be there, being disorganized in those regards, those are all issues that try people's patience, and it begins to cause people not to really engage or volunteer because they can't quite see what are we doing and how are we doing it, and you know, there's 5 chefs in the kitchen and that kind of thing. If we go to the next slide, please. What do I mean by being a project manager? As I said earlier, the president isn't there to do everything, but the president is there to be the oversight individual to assure that the things that need to be done are being accomplished on time and correctly. That means, for example, you're not going to be the person that's going to write the dues check, but you need to know what is the process of how dues at the district and RI level are calculated. When are those calculated? Exactly what dates do we have to have our correct member listing? When is the billing coming out, and when are we to pay that bill? An example would be if dues aren't paid on time, a call will be made to the treasurer, and failing that, a call will be made to the president. So saying, oh, I didn't know they were due. I didn't know how much the bill was. I haven't seen the bill. Well, our treasurer is out of the country for 3 months. All of those are not acceptable answers. So think about that now. How are you going to organize that? How are you going to not be the person executing that, but know who is supposed to execute it, how they're supposed to execute it, and making sure that is done. Similarly with, say you're doing a fellowship committee, and you send out cards to members who are ill on their birthday, on their anniversaries, etc., asking each month, what is our upcoming list? Who's going to be doing the cards? Have they been sent out? Thank you so much. Wellness checks with members. So it goes across the board. And make clear that all of your board members in their area of responsibility are also project managers. This is why the committee structure is so important. And make sure that when you are doing projects, you have a list of things to do, not just the things that are necessary to create the project and execute the project, but make sure that people are taking live action shots. Try real-time streaming from some service event where someone is describing it and getting people to comment how they're enjoying being involved in the project and the impact that that project is actually making in your community. Make sure that you are having the correct information so that you can report on that on your website, in your newsletters, on your Facebook, in the newsletter, in the district, and most importantly, to your media outlets. That may be a newspaper, that may be a radio station. You might have the advantage of a television station in your area, but also send it out to your community organizations to advise them, hey, this is what we've done, and another opportunity to serve is coming up, and we welcome you to be a part of that. Next slide, please. Thank you. And Sheila, you just tell me when I need to stop, or maybe we can stop, and if there are any questions thus far after this discussion. I want to talk about minutes and club records. Every club is expected. And when you are expected, that means it really is required that you have records and documentation developed every year, and that those records and documentation are retained from year to year and are readily available to be called upon when and if necessary. That means that you should have a standard form that creates an agenda, and you should have an organized approach to those agendas, especially for your board meetings. You should be taking minutes in a routinized and standard manner. Not Pat decided to do it this way, next year Joe's going to do it a whole different way, et cetera, et cetera. In minutes, you do not have to record what everybody said. In fact, in board minutes, please don't do that. You can do more of that in committee minutes because you're developing ideas and concepts. boards are primarily for action. So you want to identify what the action is that the board is taking, and then you can note who certainly presented the idea, who moved it, who seconded it. But if the vote is unanimous, whether it is unanimous for it or unanimous against it, you don't need to identify the maker and the second, because everybody has supported the action of the committee. Make sure that you have any agreements, your insurance that you have from RI. Make sure that every year you understand what that is. Download the forms. Make sure you understand when you're doing service projects, especially in other people's facility. Find out if you have to have a certificate of insurance, understand what that process is, and make sure you keep copies. Make sure that you have your club constitution, your bylaws, and your bylaws are updated to the contemporary outline that Rotary provides you. Make sure that your accounting records are kept similarly, if not identically, year to year, so that you can see as a club the progression. What did we spend last year? How much of a scope of work did that pay for? And that provides you with better planning from year to year. What is the best? Oh, we just got a question. What is the best program for storing all these records? Okay. Very good question. And there's basically two ways that you can approach this. One is DACDB is developing more options for clubs. There is a financial module that you can do your financial records on and your accounting on, and that allows you to retain it year to year. Similarly, as a club on DACDB, and I think Club Runner provides this, but Sheila would be better at advising us of that. But on DACDB, you have files, and you can retain those files from year to year. Barring DACDB, I know a number of clubs will buy a laptop that is the laptop, the computer for the club. And you can use that for your accounting purposes. You can, as a secretary, take your own minutes, create your own minutes, send those out, but then those can be stored in the computer that you're using additionally for your financial records. But you need to keep records. You need to evidence the fact that as an incorporated entity, and I hope every single club here is incorporated, and you need to identify when you're supposed to be filing your incorporation status and renewals at the state of Virginia. And you know when you're supposed to be filing your tax forms, because, you know, when you don't make those deadlines, there are penalties financially. And if you're caught without that and some kind of action arises, there can be additional consequences for not having that documentation. For example, being incorporated means that you are running your organization as a disciplined corporation. If you cannot present evidence of that, then that could cause the incorporation protection veil to be pierced. And that leads to a lot of complications in terms of liability exposure and whether or not insurance would even respond. So these are not inconsequential issues, thank God. Rotary clubs are usually good, and the goodness of people thank God, overrides some of these issues, but you don't want to be caught short. The biggest thing is that it provides a roadmap that subsequent boards and subsequent leaders can look at, follow, and take from there. And again, that gets back to this concept of being in the business of service and being an organized club. And that really sets you to a lot of things. We did have a question, and I apologize. Kenny asked a great question, and I answered it directly. Kaz there that we can put up the slide again. But while Kaz is doing that, Kenny asked a really good question. And as I said, I answered him directly as opposed to the whole group. And he did ask, does DAC-DB allow all members in the club to access this information? For example, a policy and procedures manual. Yes, you in DAC-DB, you can create both files that are open to all of your members, or you can put secured files that have access granted only to certain leadership members in the club. Additionally, when you open files to all members in your club, please appreciate that that is not, it can't be viewed by the public. And I'm glad that Kenny brought up the procedure manual, because we're going to start walking into that as well. So really, as president-elect, you're going to learn about what the policies and procedures are of your club. You're also going to be looking at what the current Rotary Code of policies and practices are to be for clubs. I know that a lot of clubs may not have looked at their bylaws in 10 or 20 years. You do need to look at updating them, not only for RI requirements and your club requirements, but additionally, don't forget, being incorporated in the state of Virginia means that you are going to comply with what their requirements are. For example, we all want to communicate and have board meetings and know that we can have meetings via Zoom. That is electronic transmission, and the state of Virginia does require that your bylaws permit that expressly, or at least do not tie your club down to where I see in bylaws, we will have in-person meetings and blah, 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 blah. When you include language like that, you create challenges for yourself in terms of the development and advancement of being able to use virtual tools. Know what you can and cannot decide via telephone conferences. So these are the kinds of things that you need to be up to date on. And then set a plan to identify where you are going to have to either have new club practices, and if so, what these need to be. I want to make a connection directly to the other side of this chart, and particularly with the third element, and that is minimizing your risk associated with club activities. Let me give you an example. Remember, I told you you need every year to check what the U.S. Rotary Club Insurance Program provides in terms of club's activities. Please understand that the Rotary a U.S. Club Insurance Program does not cover everything a club can think of or that a club is involved in. And it is your responsibility to make sure that your club understands what is covered, where there are limitations in that coverage, and what is not covered. Additionally, there are expectations in the risk management program of the RI insurance program that expects, for example, you to make sure that you are reporting the financials on a periodic basis, at least annually, if not semi-annually or more frequently than that. You need to have written, adopted, and annually remind, express practices and policies with regard to youth protection, anti-harassment, and other elements of that nature, including your financial practices, the do's and the don'ts, making sure that you have a designated account where dues go, and that money is not used otherwise, either for service projects or particularly club service and fellowship activities. Dues paid in are dues that you are obligated to send forward, not use in the operation of your club. One other area is in Rotary Logos. Rotary is very much monitoring to assure that everyone is up to date with their logos. For example, the old logo had the wheel that was filled in. That's an old logo. You need to update those logos. We had to do this for the district. We had our logo with the cardinal and the cherry blossoms and a lot of other stuff around it. We can use that in our pins that we give out to people, but when we are putting a district logo, it has to conform with the Rotary logo. So those are a couple of areas. Next slide, please. Most clubs have the next slide, if we can go to. Yes, thank you. You don't have to read all of this. What I want to talk about is what are the differences between a charter, which is the expression of the purpose, the mission, which generally will not change, that conforms to the proper corporate classification that you have in the state of Virginia and is approved. The second thing is, okay, now you've told us what you are as an organization and what your mission is. Now you've got to set up what are going to be your fundamental practices that either you're required to have corporately or that Rotary requires you to have in order to move forward and operate as a Rotary Club. You want to be able to have that language broader rather than very narrow. The more narrowly defined you make that language, the more confined, the more constricted, and quite frankly, the more often you are going to have to go back to those bylaws and change them and change them and change them. And if you want to confuse members, do that. So you want to have enough specificity so everybody understands it. You want to be sure that you only include the most essential elements, broad strokes. And then the third document that every club should have is a manual of procedures. This is something where the club decides, okay, now we're going to define how, for instance, you're saying, yes, you're going to have monthly board meetings. You may identify in that you give the president the authority to suspend maybe one, no more than 2 board meetings a year. And that's fine. And you identify the circumstances for that. But in the procedures manual, you want to be able to say, well, we're going to have board meetings. They're going to be at such and such location. They're going to be on XYZ day monthly. You don't need to put that kind of detail in your bylaws. That's what a manual of procedures is. What I spoke about earlier about having your youth protection policies, practices, and procedures, having the anti-harassment elements in that, those policies and practices and procedures need to be adopted by your membership. So the board develops them, excuse me, the board adopts them, and the board asks the membership to adopt them as well. Primarily so that the membership in doing that is making an affirmative statement that, yes, I know that these requirements are on the books. Yes, I know what the parameters of those practices and policies and the expectation of myself as a member of this club. And thirdly, that these are obligations that we have anyway, and that we will abide by them. And then you should remind your members to annually look at some of these key practices and procedures. For instance, how are you going to keep your membership list? One of the things is to find out what level of information each and every member is comfortable providing. At the very least, you must provide name, you must provide an accurate contact for the individual, certainly an address. And I would encourage clubs to discuss with members having a non-business address, a non-business cell phone number, because people change businesses, they change professions, they change, therefore, the business phone number and the business address. And then when people are trying to contact you, you're not there anymore. Now you're a member without any identification, and there's no way to contact you. This becomes a problem. Additionally, you should have in your practices and policies manual the fact that members should not be opting out of P-mail or the communications that you use in your club. Your obligation as a Rotarian is to be informed, is to be up to date, and to be engaged. In order for those three things to happen, you've got to know. And the only way you know is if you are part of the information circuit in your club, you're part of that information circuit at the district level and also at the RI level. That's not possible when you opt out of communication channels. And that is an issue. And this is another reason why I encourage members to consider creating an email address specifically for their Rotary communications. That way you are able to keep it segregated from personal communiques, and most importantly, segregated from all of the stuff that you get in your professional and business life. So these are standards, we're kind of at the end here, but do you have any questions of me? Oh, I'm sorry, the next one, and we've just talked about this, make sure that every single member in your club knows how to access DACDB, how to create their account in DACDB, how they create their personal account in My Rotary, and are able to take advantage of the information resources that are available to them. And of course, that'll happen with the instruction that you're going to get here at Pre-PETS towards the end of your program, and then again in CPET's program. Also, as a club leader, you need to appreciate that Rotary is limiting the number of officers that have access to the full breadth of information available. However, you can increase the number of those officers that do have access by sharing your access to a particular area. For example, at the district level, our assistant governors for each of your areas have a certain level of access. they share that access with your area foundation advisors so that both can use and have access to the same information. That doesn't allow that individual to see your personal information, any sensitive information, your giving records or anything like that. But it does allow a one-channel sharing so that instead of only 4 people having access, you can have 8 people have access. This is particularly important for your secretaries so that you have someone who can back them up, making sure you're getting all new member information, any changes with current members into that database within 30 days of the change, or certainly making sure that your membership files are accurate on July 1 and January 1, which are the 2 dates that RI establishes the number of members for which you will be charged dues, and Rotary directs districts to use that same number in their billing. For any of you that have been long-term Rotary members and remember how you did it prior to 2015, those days are over. Rotary set in new practices in 2015, which took place in 2016 forward. And those are the protocols that we all have to follow today. With that, ask, are there any other questions? And we can just open it up and have a discussion if you need to. What are the required membership meetings? By that, what, who asked this? ML, I'm sorry. What do you mean by that?
The question, there are meetings required every week, membership meetings. I just wanted to be clear.
Oh, require, okay, in terms of the membership meetings, okay. It used to be that Rotary did require membership meetings every week, and they used to take attendance, and people had to attend 80%, at least 80% of those meetings. Today, that is not a per se requirement. Rotary does require you to have meetings. Clubs can choose to have that weekly. Clubs can choose to have 3 meetings a month. There are some of our clubs that meet only twice a month. And if that works for your club and you continue to be a functional club, that is, you have meetings, you're making decisions, you're engaged in service projects, you are growing your membership, you as a club and the members in your club are giving to the Rotary Foundation. There is a whole series of things that identify you as a functioning club. As long as you're doing that, you could have 6 meetings. For example, there are some clubs that have their traditional weekly meeting with the majority of their members, but they may have some members that don't. For instance, we're a breakfast club. We have some members that say, I'm retired, I'm not getting up that early. That was okay. We started a monthly luncheon club. So they will come maybe to 1 breakfast a month and they will go to the luncheon club. And it is one of the officers' responsibility in the club to be at that luncheon meeting so that they can update those members, they can hear their suggestions and ideas, keep them up to date on projects, etc. So really it is up to you. Some clubs will do 2 in-person meetings, they will do 1 virtual meeting, and then they will do for the 4th meeting, for example, a service project, or they may go ahead and do an after hours, happy hour and just get together as a fellowship. So how you do it, in our club, we also have a it's actually a bylaws requirement, which it should be. And that is that anywhere that we conduct Rotary business for 2 hours or more is considered a meeting of the club. So it's really up to you.
Cool.
Are there any other questions?
There is one more in the chat, Pat. Is there a minimum number of club meetings you have to have each year?
The key operative to that is what constitutes a functioning club.
Am I frozen again?
I don't think
You are frozen, Sheila.
Can people hear me? But anyway, you know, it gets down to a functioning club. If you are going to meet once a month and are not really engaged in service projects, that your membership continues to decline, would that be a functioning club? You know, our obligation as Rotarians and Rotary Club is what? To be out there in the community, serving to change lives, doing good in our community, and making a permanent impact for good in our communities. And those communities can be local, and those communities can be international. So really, again, it's, are you open to your community? Are you inviting your community into your club? Are you doing projects? Are you engaged in the foundation? Are you making a difference in your community? And how you do that is really up to you. But those are going to be the assessment elements of what constitutes a functioning club. Is that helpful? You're a very quiet group. Yes, okay, thank you. I'm glad, Daisy. If there are there any other questions of me or any further
I would like
information
to,
needs?
yes, I'd like to follow up on two things that you mentioned, Pat, just to make sure everybody hears it. One of the newest requirements that they just came out with a year ago is the fact that every Rotarian must have their complete date of birth in the RI database. And I went through our clubs yesterday and we're still missing a couple, and I can't get the folks to tell me what their year of birth is. And this becomes very important when they get to the point where they want to change to rule of 85 or anything, or if they want to qualify for a rule of 35. We just started that in our club. We have to have, Rotary has to have your full date of birth in order to ensure that you actually do qualify for that designation and that change in your status. And the second thing I want to mention, I know Pat talked about insurance, and we've been talking about insurance for clubs for the last year with all the changes that took place last year globally about insurance for large organizations. I am in contact with the district insurance representative on our district chair. He's a Rotarian, he's actually in our club, to have him come and speak to us at CPETS during one of our breakouts.
Right.
And just kind of go over club insurance requirements and stuff and answer any questions that you may have. So,
right. And
go ahead,
I would point out that understand that the insurance program is both for your club activities, and any of you who may have a club foundation. It is critical that you understand what the Rotary US Club Insurance Program provides for club foundations, what qualifies you for that coverage, and what disqualifies you for that coverage in terms of the operation of your club foundations, which is quite critical. Well, I don't want to hold anybody up. It has been a pleasure. I hope this has been helpful. I will be giving you a resource package that will have a, for instance, a sample agenda in terms of a structure for that, sample structure for minutes, and several other documents, the latest RI code of policy and practices for everything. So with that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
This was wonderful. Thank you so much, Pat.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I will get our email ready and send out the email for our next session. Our next session is scheduled for December 16th, and it's one you really don't want to miss. It's all about membership. And our past district governor, Jonathan Lucas, will be here with our new district membership chair that is starting next year, who happens to be the current president of the Alexandria West Rotary Club. So I'm sorry about my internet tonight. Apparently my internet is unstable and my computer went down, so I jumped right on my cell phone. So, but I am here, and if this broke, I would have gotten on my husband's cell phone. So I will find ways to make sure I can stay in touch. So thank you all for your time tonight. Thank you for all of our explorers that did the social activity tonight and the introductions of each other. They were absolutely wonderful. And I look forward to seeing you all again on the 16th of December.
Thank you,
Good
Sheila.
night, explorers. Thank you so
Good night.
much.
Yeah.